you so much for being here. I'm so grateful.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Good. All right. So Ellie and I like to start the pod with the same question, and it's going to make you go back in the time machine, back to your high school year, whole different time of your life, whole situation that maybe you've forgotten about and packed away. But tell us, as a senior, when you looked out at the world, where you were stepping into, what were you seeing or feeling? What were your thoughts about your future?
Well, I was pretty optimistic about my future as I am today. I think that's just something that is deep within me. And as a senior in high school, I was ready to take on college. And I was all set to go to Smith College, a women's college in Western Massachusetts. I'm old enough that if you wanted to go to the Ivy League, they were closed to women. And so Smith College and Wellesley were the Ivy League for women, so to speak, at that time. And so I was very excited to be headed off on a near full scholarship to Smith College.
That's amazing. Where were you from? Where'd you grow up?
So I grew up in Minnesota.
Okay. And Smith is in the Northeast.
Western Massachusetts.
Okay, yeah. I think of all of the Ivy Leagues being in the Northeast.
I think in general they are. Yeah. I think they sort of grabbed that name long before we thought about Stanford or the University of Chicago and some of the other great schools that exist.
Yeah.
Did you apply to both of those colleges?
I only applied to Smith College and a backup college in Minnesota.
And was there something specific about Smith other than it was Ivy and it was women, but was there something else in their programming that you liked?
Well, they had reached out to me and were actively recruiting me and offered me enough money. That was, I think, really the key.
Yeah. That's probably a quality you've kept the rest of your life.
Did you know what you wanted to study? Like coming out of college, you said coming out of high school, you were feeling optimistic about your future. You had gotten into the college that you wanted to go to. Did you know what you were going to study?
Well, it's funny you think about that because I actually have a copy of my college application, which was very different from how they are today, I might add. And I always thought that I was going to be a marriage and family counselor. My mother was a social worker and my dad was a preacher, minister. And so I thought that I would be in the social services world. And that's really what I thought I would do. And I majored in psychology thinking that that was my road ahead. I come from a family of, dare I call them, intellectuals, very much respected thinkers. And so we are doctors and lawyers and preachers and teachers.
I think of you even in what you ended up having as a career as a respected thinker still, right? People are paying you for your brain. So I would say that you still qualify under that subsection. And so when did you move from psychology and into finance?
So I think it happened actually during my college years, which is an unusual thing to say given that I went to a liberal arts college. Interestingly enough, because I was on financial aid and I needed to work. And so one of the jobs that was open was a job at the infirmary doing their accounts payable. And if I took a class at UMass, which I took for no credit, in accounting, then I could have this job. So I took this class in accounting at UMass, and then I got this job at the infirmary doing their accounts payable.
That is an incredible twist of fate.
I think that's exactly right. And then the second thing that happened is that Smith managed its own endowment at that time. And the leader of the endowment, the chief investment officer, had a class, in quotes, that he offered to seniors to come and learn about the investment business. And so a friend of mine
That's really neat.
doing it. And so I thought, well, let's do that. And so I think we met maybe 8 or 10 times, and it involved a trip to Wall Street at the end of the time. And so during the course of my senior year, I learned a lot about asset management and was able to go to Wall Street and see it in action and to kind of get a taste for it. I don't know how those things happened, but I think my natural proclivities, which are business and commercially oriented, just found a way, even in the middle of a premiere, liberal arts education.
Yeah,
to
they punched
find-
through,
to-
and you recognized
to-
it.
Yeah.
And was there a moment where you were like, "Oh, I'm definitely not going to be a counselor"?
I think you're always a counselor. Because when you lead people, you're counseling them. When you're a parent, you're counseling them. When you have a neighborhood issue, you're counseling them. When we have political issues, we have to work together. I think you always are. And I do give my family a lot of credit at the dining room table every night as we would recount what happened in the course of the day. No one lashed out when there was something that had happened that was untoward. Instead, they would say, "Why do you think they reacted that way? What was it that they would have that reaction?" And so that's a great way, I think, that we were all taught to understand what was behind something, not to lash out at it but sometimes to take action.
I think it's actually it's something that I've wanted to write about or speak about is the power of the dining table. How we learn so much around a table with other people, first with our family, and those lessons are deep. I love that story because I was the same in my family. We talked a lot more about feelings than we did about the thinking side of it. So I love that culture in your family help shape you and bring you along.
Yes, and it continues to this day. Some of our best conversations are when we share meals. The Christmas after ChatGPT was introduced, we had a Christmas conversation, and it was all about the effects of AI. We were playing with ChatGPT. First question, tell us what is the definition of the tragedy of the commons? Very good description. Then the second question was, how do you avoid the tragedy of the commons? This economic principle. Third question, by the way, these all good answers that came out of ChatGPT. Third question was, how do you exploit the tragedy of the commons?
Ooh.
And it came back and said, this is not advised. The rest of the conversation was who put morality into ChatGPT and how did we know that they were doing that? And how were we in 20, 30, 50 years going to know about the morality choices of ChatGPT? And of course, this is one of the key issues that is front and center today.
This was a dinner table conversation?
Yes, Christmas dinner.
When do I get invited?
Oh, no.
Oh my gosh.
We should just have dinners and let's just do it.
That's our next idea. Dinner parties for
Deep think dinners.
Yeah, I
Deep
like
think
it.
dinners.
You already have a name. That's not surprising at all. That is one of the biggest questions that we have for AI, and it's cool that your family has the ability to have those kinds of conversations. But I think it's also really unique and neat that you had that background of questioning the way that things were being taught or questioning the way that people were thinking about things. And that probably transitioned you into a successful corporate career because you had not only the finance in mind, but the people in mind. And I don't know that many leaders
have both.
Have that blend, and that's probably why you've had so much success. So tell us the short version of your kind of career trajectory. You start in accounting, doing accounts payable. You end up in finance. Then what? And bring us to through your kind of corporate career.
Actually, I didn't start thinking I was going to do finance. I started out thinking I was going to do law. I had taken a class of constitutional law at Smith and had done very well, and the professor had suggested that I go to law school. Well, after college, I got married, and my husband was going to go to graduate school, and so I decided to, as we did at that time, put him through school. And so I became a paralegal, which introduced me to the law, and once I realized what the practice of law was like, I realized that I'm better doing the actions rather than looking at them or documenting them. And so I was actually in that year, I learned that I probably would be a better business person than I would be a lawyer. And so it was only after I was really pursuing and thinking I was going to be a lawyer that I thought, no, I think I'd be better as a business person, sort of interestingly enough. And what I think I haven't talked about was naturally when there's something to be done, whether it was in high school or college, I just wanted to run it. And so I did. So I'm house president, and so I was head of all the Gold Key guides. It's just a natural thing for me to do.
Yeah,
And
you just found
Just
yourself
liked it.
in leadership roles, pursuing leadership roles, and
just naturally, as though
Yeah.
that were the most natural thing to do in the world. And so it turns out that in the process of putting my husband through graduate school, I went to work for Atlantic Richfield Company, oil and gas company, and I just saw opportunities and just made the case for them. So I'm very good at seeing white space and then figuring out how it is that we could fill that white space and what it is that we could do. And I think it's because of that ability that I got a lot of attention and also was able to practice many things. So I remember specifically when I had so many direct reports, I just couldn't. I couldn't manage them all, and I had to go to fewer. And how do you go through that? And how do you pick your managers? And how do you train them? So I was very, very fortunate in my early stage of my career that I was able to see an opportunity and really grow it and then lead it. And so I felt that I was an intrapreneur at a very young age, which is probably why I look like and honor and respect young entrepreneurs so much and look for the traits that they have to really be savvy about the business that they're in.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But I also think that it was uncharacteristic of the time. And so I think that it's really interesting that you made this statement that it was so natural. It was so natural. It was like water. Like it was who you were. It is who you are. But and you just were able to bring it to yourself, these leadership roles and grow through them. I think that is just, I think people feel that way, and I've not heard it described it that way. And I felt that at different periods of my time in my career where other people were like, why are you pursuing that? Or why, leading in that way, and almost feeling other people be like, why? And it's like, I don't know. It just feels like this is what I should do, right? Like it just feels natural.
I find myself often, I have to be deliberate. If I get involved in a group activity of any kind, business, social, whatever it is, I have to make a deliberate decision. Am I going to lead this or am I going to follow? And I'm not going to be the follower who doesn't follow. So I either have to I make a very, I usually end up in charge of things. And I have to say to myself, you're not going to be in charge. You're going to be a follower. So act like a follower.
I do that too, yeah.
But more often than not, I want to lead. And I'm curious about your experience because you talk about how all these leadership experiences in college, you kind of just naturally took the lead. Do you think it would have been different for you had you been at a college with men?
I don't really think so.
Okay.
I just think it's
I don't think so either.
so natural and so comfortable for me. I just wanted the quality of education that you could get in the Ivy League.
Yeah.
That's what I was really seeking. A couple things about leadership that are interesting. I often encourage parents to look hard at their children and what they're actually doing. Because if someone had looked hard at me when I was a child, they would have seen, she's organizing the whole neighborhood. I organized plays. I organized school. Of course, we had, frankly, no television or very limited television, no cell phones. It was just all us getting together and doing our own play and our own fun. And so I was organizing everything all the time. And so I encourage parents, watch what your children are doing. If you've got someone who wants to practice the trumpet 5 hours a day, okay, let them practice the trumpet 5 hours a day. Follow the child, but watch so that you can help guide them as to what their what strengths they may want to. They're so natural that you want to build on. Second thing, when you talk about, am I going to be a follower? Am I going to be a leader? So I'm a member of the Junior League. And the Junior League has historically done a tremendous job of training professional volunteers. One time I was in a training session, I think it was in London. I saw that someone was coming around and dropping little tiny pieces of paper within each little grouping of people. And so I thought, well, that's sort of interesting. And so I picked it up, and it says, you are the natural leader of this group. Take charge. And I thought, you know what? I'm not going to take charge this time. I'm just going to see how long it takes for other people to recognize. So I folded it back up, put it back on the floor, and then proceeded to watch the behavior of the groups to see what the behaviors were of the people who were ultimately finding this piece of paper and then and then choosing to be leader. It took a really long time. And my takeaway from that experience not only was that I was choosing to be a follower, not a leader, but I was certainly at that time almost watching for coaching and who you might want to be watching for as your next set of leaders. But also, one of the key things of leadership is keen observation, watching for things. And I watch for leaders, and I watch very carefully for the characteristics of people who I think can make a contribution to our community, who can make a contribution to our communities, and of course, in my corporate life, who would be the next good leaders.
Yeah, I think that the way that people do anything is the way they do everything. And you're right, like observing people and what choice do they make, and do they leave a mess in the kitchen when they make their cup of coffee? To me, that is a signal, or do they wipe the counter for the next person? It's just interesting, that level of observation in your life. And I like that you have so much self-observation where you look at like, okay, I don't want to be an attorney. I don't like this. Actually, I want to be doing that. I love it. I love that, observing.
So you land in a corporate career. You continue to grow through the ranks and are building teams. Bring us to the part where you're, a CFO.
Oh, we're skipping a couple decades there?
Yeah, no, well, just, I'm trying to give me,
hop along the
don't
decades.
skip the whole decades, but give us the abbreviated version of getting to the
Ascension, the ascension.
Yeah, the ascension. Tell us about the ascension from here to there.
So I joined Atlantic Richfield Company again and worked first in legal, but worked on my MBA at UCLA at the same time. So that worked out extremely well for me to be able to do that. And once I received my MBA, then I was able to join what we would have called the Financial Development Program. And it is now understood that ARCO and GE have some of the best financial development programs that existed in the world. And they have a very prescriptive, flexible, but a planned path for you to do it, saying that there were 7 key characteristics and financial skill sets that you needed to have. And you could pick 4 of them, and you needed to master 4 of them. And the other 3, they were less concerned. You may not need a mastery of tax, but you certainly needed to have a nodding acquaintance with what the consequences of tax were. So you were put in positions that you could develop all 7, and then your natural tendencies toward being excellent, say, at 4 of them. So we were moved consciously and deliberately, and then if you chose to be moved, then you could have many different experiences, for example, overseas, that other people would not necessarily have. So I did 24 years almost at Atlantic Richfield in financial development program, and it is through that I really developed the analytical skills, the people skills, the leadership skills. They invested tremendously in us in the training and the experience, giving us sometimes very tough jobs we didn't know how to do before. And so I have a lot of on-the-job training, and I have a lot of deliberate training, whether it's managing difficult people or difficult situations, negotiating with, say, the Venezuelans, which I've done, all of those different things that you just get great experience in. Because I was willing to move, I had 5 great years in London, 5 great years in Alaska, among other places that I've been to. So
That's
it
really
is
neat.
it's pretty unusual that you're willing to move that much. And so I have wonderful friends and acquaintances from many parts around the world. What I don't have is those deep relationships that one has from living in a community for their entire life.
Yeah. And that is the trade-off,
It
right?
is.
Yeah, but there
It
is also really unique perspective from being able to interact with lots of different people and cultures and have different experiences. And there's something that you had said years ago. We had a phone call where I was transitioning jobs and I didn't know what to do next. And you were very honest with me in a way that I needed. But you're like, I don't know what you would do in a corporation. You're a generalist. I don't know what you would do. So I was like, I'm tired of the startup world. How about the corporate world? And you were just kind of like, I'm not so sure about that for you, which was what I needed to hear, or else I don't think I would have been able to learn that I wanted to buy a business, own a business, and run a business. So I'm very thankful for that timely advice that I got in that period of time. But one thing that you mentioned was that you became an expert in the field of finance and even had to learn across, 7 distinctions, but deeply in 4. And I think that is extremely unique and valuable to have both been broad in your learning about different cultures and different people, but very detailed in your experience in the topic of corporate finance.
And I might add, that's unique. That training program is unique. And I think it's about 10 CFOs that it spawned. Mm-hmm. And so it turns out that Atlantic Richfield, which is this company, was acquired by BP in 2000. And most of us did not go with BP. Most of us instead were picked up by other companies. And as you know, that's how I ultimately came to Brown-Forman to be CFO. But we were so very well prepared. We had all that experience. And we were very ready to be CFOs. And most of us brought that training program along with us to our to think, if you're going to create in-house talent that's ready to succeed you've got to prepare them and you have to develop them.
Mm-hmm. In these 24 years where you're moving every 5 years, you also had 3 daughters, right?
2.
Okay, 2 daughters. And so I don't believe in like work-life balance necessarily, and I don't like asking women this question, but I am curious about the evolution of, just having massive success in learning in your corporate career while also moving across the country multiple times while also having small children. So can you talk a little bit about what
kind of help did you have to do that?
What kind of help? That's a good way of putting it. Yeah.
So my first child was born in England.
Okay.
And England is blessed with British nannies. And we had a fabulous British nanny, and she taught me how to be a parent. And we are still in contact, and she came last year, and my daughter was pregnant with a child. And it's that kind of closeness.
That's so neat.
That you have. And so I think about it this way. So many times we talk about our ability to outsource things that we really shouldn't do. Mm-hmm. And I often give the advice to startup and women who are coming up, put a value on your time per hour. What are you worth per hour? Are you worth $100 an hour? Are you worth $1,000 an hour? I mean, like, what value can you bring if you spent a solid hour on something? And then if you can hire it for less than that, then you should hire that work done.
Mm-hmm. Amen.
And so whether it is cleaning your car out or, shopping or whatever it is, I would I'm very thoughtful about how that is done. And I think about the same with our nanny. She was so tremendous that I was outsourcing it, frankly, but to someone who was better than I was and then could teach me how to be a really good parent. And so I just have absolute admiration if you can find the right people to be able to do that. I also had the resources to be able to do it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And not everybody has those resources. And for that, I'm very sensitive. And so I don't want to overlook that. And so we just lived with a series of nannies. My second child was born in Alaska when we were there.
But I think what you're saying is universal, even if you can't afford a nanny, which I never had. I couldn't afford a nanny. I would have loved to have had a nanny. But I think what you're saying is it's what my father said to me was, what are you worth per hour? Mm-hmm. And that if you put your time into something, you can grow it, and why not get the help you need in places, even if it's just something like paying for the pickup fee at Kroger to get your groceries for you, instead of you having to go through the grocery with your kid and deal with all of that.
Correct.
And so I think that that's something women need to hear, because so many of us have internalized this idea that we're supposed to be something, or, you're not a good mom if you're not, or you're not a good wife if you're not XYZ doing the tasks. And I think it's a powerful thing to release women from that and say, of course, your time is better spent in certain spaces in your life. It gives you joy. It makes you money, whatever it might be. And it's okay to get help.
Right. I often say men outsource a lot of things. There's no reason that women can't outsource. The only thing that we can do that men can't do is carry a child. And so honor that, accept that. But that is a small part of a long and healthy and contributing life.
Yes.
Thank you.
And I think that was kind of the perfect question, Maggie, because I think that is the point. And I got that advice younger too. And while I couldn't have a nanny, someone told me at a dinner party once that she would go into debt for a cleaning lady, that it was so important to her and her spouse's career trajectories that it saved their marriage to not be having marital tension over a cleaning lady. And so it's something we've protected. And it's like, if that means we have to live in a smaller house for longer so that we can have a cleaning lady. And it took me getting over a mental barrier of, I'm not wealthy enough to have this resource, or I didn't grow up like that. And instead say, no, my house feels so much better and I didn't have to do it. And I got to focus those hours on either playing with my kids or building my company. And so, no, we're not wealthy yet. No, but you might not have the resources, but also check to make sure that you're not having a limiting belief and actually could make room to outsource some things.
A really good idea that I know a family did. They hired a nanny. They said, we want to grow the mother's career. She has a lot of potential. We don't have enough money, but would you take a lower salary, and whatever she gets increase in pay will increase the same percentage of you?
Oh, cool.
And that nanny did it. And so they always joked about how they had the highest paid nanny because they had tied it to the success of the mother. And it was wonderful, it was successful for both of them.
That is wonderful.
And so there are many ways to work this out. I think we have to be thoughtful about childcare. This is a really vexing issue for us in general, to make sure that the children get the quality, care that they deserve and we want them to have.
This conversation is already just so good.
Yeah.
So I'm going to kind of I want to shift gears a little bit. So CFO Brown-Forman, tell us how many years you were there.
7.
7 years. Okay. And there's a rich life post Brown-Forman that we want to touch on as well. But there's one topic I want to make sure we touch on, which is the extraordinary mother that you had. And I love the story about her project and how you two worked on that together. And I would just love for you to share a little bit about that, because I think it just honors who you are because of the kind of mother that you had.
Oh, thank you for asking. My mom is Margaret Peterson, and social worker. She was born in Minnesota, and her father was a minister, her mom a nurse. I told you, this is the heritage of our family, right? She got herself to college during the war by working in, I think, the dean's office or something like that, taking a year off to make some money so she could actually go to her dream college at the time, which was St. Olaf College in Minnesota. Anyway, that's how she did it. Then she married, when the war was over, she married my dad. They had met in high school. My dad became ultimately a minister, and she became the unpaid pastor's wife who ran everything but the services. She kind of ran the church, and she was beloved by all the people, and they were this young, dynamic couple, and they served in the church until, and there were 4 children, by the way, an older brother and 2 younger brothers. And I might add, I give my brothers a lot of credit for my ability to work comfortably with men. I've just
a part of your
kind of been surrounded by men.
Surrounded by them as I was growing up.
You were used to bossing them around,
playing around, or just having fun.
I know.
So my mom then and my dad both decided that they wanted to shift careers a little bit. My mom said, I think I'm ready to go back and do a master's in social work. And my dad said, I'll go back and I'll be a chaplain. And so at midlife, they took 2 years off and went back to graduate school to do the training that they needed to be able to do that. And so we as a family observed what it was like to be the children of very poor, unpaid parents. I mean, they had enough money for us to live, but not really, go on spring break.
Yeah, no
I'll just say it
expensive
that way.
vacations.
There was no spring break trips. But they then launched their careers mid-career. And my mother in particular, my dad did his chaplaincy for a long time, and my mom did social work, and she ran social work groups for decades. And as she passed the retirement age of 65, she continued to do what I'll call fill-in work. So all spring breaks, all Christmases, all of when people wanted time off, then she would come in and be the social worker. And she worked in a hospital, so she was a medical social worker. So these are people who are some trauma has occurred and they need to make a change in their life. And how do you then go about making a change? So
Which
she's
makes
a
sense
fixer.
with the
She's a fixer.
nursing and the social work combined.
Correct.
Yeah.
So she's a medical social worker. So she continued to do that until I think age 85 or so, something like that. But she is an incredible, insatiable intellect. And so she was always going to be doing something, always learning something. And so after my dad died, she moved here to Louisville and lived with us for many years. And she was always at the seminary or always working on many projects, often with Mayor Fisher. So this is just, she has to
Do something.
be involved and contribute as she can. For various reasons, she moved back to Minnesota, but at age 97, she was then living in Minnesota. And she just thought the world was going wrong. And so she just decided that she needed to do something. And so she and a group of other people created a group, and they called themselves Be Kind, roughly based on what she learned from Mayor Fisher and Cities of Compassion. But she thought that was too hoity-toity and for Minnesota, and so you needed to be more plain-spoken, and so it was Be Kind. And so she and a group of dedicated people started the Be Kind movement, which got a lot of publicity and a lot of notoriety, and tackled projects in the community, and most of them with children, because they felt they needed to get through. If you could get through to the children and you could teach the children how to be kind, that this was the key. And so they're wonderful experiences that she's had. She dreamt up a saying, be kind, just try it, I will. And so the kids would always run up to her in the street and they would give her a little saying. And so she developed this group at 97.
That's amazing.
Started it.
That's amazing.
Started it at 97. And at 100, we had a big party for her 100th birthday. And I said, friends, now is the time to come back. She's wonderful. She's healthy. She's doing great. Let's make sure, let's do a party now. And so we had a wonderful party. And the thing that she specifically asked for at this party, just fun fact, is she wanted to do dancing. Well, she said, I never learned how to ballroom dance, but I want to do dancing. And so we put her in a wheelchair. She could easily walk, but to really have fun on the dance floor, we put her in a wheelchair, and we have wonderful videos of her time dancing. It was really good fun. But why do I honor that so much? Finally sat down with her and I said, Mom, what is it that you're actually doing? So this is just before we had COVID shutdown. And so I sat with her because I would go visit her about every 6 weeks. And I just started writing down principles that she was applying. And a lot of them are very recognizable leadership and organizational principles. Some very different, but some very similar. Mm-hmm. So I said, well, let me just write them down in business speak for you. And so we created this business speak thing. And then we had COVID. And so I didn't get back to her to really sit down one-on-one and talk to her until the summer of 2021. So we kind of really refined them. and she got the notoriety from the World Kindness Movement. And so we did a webinar with them, which was quite fun.
How old was she when you did the webinar? Like 102?
She was 101.
That's amazing.
And so we did this webinar, and they wanted 3 things as a result of it. One was, could you write up the principles of what you do so that this could be replicated around the world? 2, my mother has massive amounts of quotes on kindness and thoughts on kindness. Could we have her journals and publish them? And 3, here's an idea for a children's book. So I'm communicating all this to my mom because they're telling me what they want to do. She goes, I do not want a book written about me. I think there are so many books on kindness. Nobody needs a new book on kindness. They just need to do it. But she said, that idea about telling people how we do this? Yeah, you need to do that, Phoebe. And so I spent a lot of time thinking about that, and I ended up writing a PowerPoint presentation, my language at this point, about how we might do that. And I've given it a couple of times, and it's a pamphlet or a short book, maybe a series of podcasts that they should be made. It's not finished, although when I was giving it to a group of people, they said, Phoebe, this is like micro kindnesses to offset microaggressions. And I thought that was such a good idea. I said, can I have that idea? And they said, of course you can. So I bought the domain micro kindnesses, so that it's there, because I think one day this should be there.
Let's not wait till you're 97. Let's do it sooner than that.
Yeah, I will have to outsource that because I'm very busy.
Luckily, you have
very
load of wonderful people who would want to help you with that.
Well, bring them on. Yeah. Bring them on. But I will say, she always said there was one book that was the best book on kindness that she's ever read. So let me just share it with you.
Please.
And it's called Congratulations, by the way. And it is essentially a transcribed graduation speech, a commencement speech. It's a tremendous book.
Okay.
And it will take you,
by the way.
I'm going to download that immediately.
As long to read it as it would be to give it, which is about 20 minutes. But it's a book. And it is tremendous.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
I reread it from time to time because it is a great reminder of kindness. So we should be careful to do it, to be thoughtful about it.
That's
Thank
amazing.
you.
Thank you. And I love that you continue to work with your family, both in like loving and kind ways, but also in action-oriented ways, which is so true to your mother's nature too, it sounds like, is that how do we take these concepts and these conversations and actually apply them to the world? And how do we move the world forward? And one of those, I'm kind of transitioning us pretty bluntly back to the business world, but one of those ways that you've been able to apply your knowledge and breadth to the world has been from your career, and after, maybe even during, you have to tell me or correct me, your corporate career, you began to sit on a lot of publicly traded boards. And you became a startup investor and advisor. And so you had this career after the career. So tell us a little bit about making the transition from being a CFO at a corporation into corporate boards and startup investments, because they couldn't be the further apart, right? Like, let's help people who have ideas and let's sit on the boards of massive corporations.
Yeah, somehow it felt natural to me. And maybe I'll be able to explain why that is natural. Corporate boards are to be a strategic advisor and also to hire and fire the CEO. With all my training and so many years in corporations, you're used to dealing with boards. You're comfortable with getting to know the directors, and so it became pretty clear to me that was something that I was really interested in and thought that I'd be very good at. It takes someone who is intellectually curious, but also willing to, and a good observer, but also know when to come in and when to help and when to stay out of management's business. And that just is comfortable for me. And so my first board was Oshkosh Bagosh, the children's clothing, in 2003. So I've been on boards continuously since that. As a CFO, I was only on one board at a time. After I retired from corporate life, where they own you, I went to the phase of my life where I own me, and I call that my portfolio phase. And in that portfolio phase, you can then sit on several boards if you are ready and prepared and so inclined. So that explains that. That became comfortable for me. A seated CEO and a seated CFO are usually highly desirable by boards for them to sit on the boards because they have the big picture knowledge of how does this really run, and they're comfortable with all the financials.
Yeah, and those seem to be like the two key things. They need to have both the perspective of how something at scale runs and a detailed understanding of the financials. Because you were explaining earlier, there are some legal parameters that board members, CEOs, and CFOs all have to abide by. Can you explain that again?
Yeah, so Sarbanes-Oxley was passed, and in that legislation, the CEO and the CFO have to certify the financial statements. The certification, if the financial statements are wrong, is criminal. It's a criminal violation, not just civil. And so that puts you in jail if they're wrong. And so it's understood that you would...
Better know what you're doing.
You better know what you're doing. And a fun fact, so after Sarbanes-Oxley was passed, Owsley Brown, CEO of Brown-Forman, and I was CFO at the time, the first thing we did is we went through our entire annual report and financials just to make sure that they were accurate. We thought we better go through this again with a fine-tooth comb. I think we made one minor change for moving one cost to another. I think it was $12 million. It was totally immaterial. And then he had us the two of us initial every page of the annual report, and he said, we're putting this in the vault for posterity. And so he says, I just want to make sure that everybody knows that we went through this as carefully as we did, and we want everyone to know that we're signing it and we're putting our names on it. So Sarbanes-Oxley is very real. So it's pretty easy and highly desired. I can't say it's easy. It's highly desired for a CEO and for a CEO to be on your corporate board, because that makes sense. Now, of course, there are a whole lot of other factors that would go into board service. If you want to run a company, don't sit on their board. For example, if many people have conflicts in time, then they can't make the board meetings, well, then you can't be on a board. And what skill sets are needed around the board table? And more, we've been very thoughtful to make sure we have a boardroom that's filled with the right kinds of skills and the right kinds of people around that table. And I think it's very deliberate these days and very thoughtful about who we should have to really advise the companies.
And I think that at that point itself actually moves really well into your startup work, because as an investor, sometimes investors take startup board seats as well, which is two very different things, right? But one of the pieces of advice I have heard you give is, who do you want as investors in your startup?
Right.
Because it's the same concept of building that correct team.
Exactly right. So I think you should be very thoughtful who you have around you. And some people articulate this very well. They have their own board of advisors or their own, some people are very clever at this. But I think that in general, you want to be around people who are good people and who want to work with you on hard problems. So if I were to characterize what I do this phase of my life, I want to work on hard problems with good people. I don't want to work on intractable problems. I don't want to work on easy problems. I want to work on hard problems, but with good people. And so if we think about that
that is good. We need like a poster with that. Hard problems with good people.
That's right. And so those people who come together who want to solve something and really want to do the work to try to get at it. And so there's just, the world's offering us many opportunities. There's some hard problems ahead of us right now, as every every age has its hard problems. So to work on it with good people. And so I feel very strongly about that. And I think when you compose a board, whether it's a corporate board or a startup board or investors, who do you want with you? Who do you want to help you? And so it's a mix. It's a mix of people. Whether you're putting together a nonprofit board or any other board, who are these people and what will they bring?
Interesting. Very deliberate. Design it. Design your experience. Think carefully about that. That's good.
I really encourage that a lot.
And I think that's hard. I would imagine it would be hard for people who have a startup who are trying to raise money and they just are like, I need money from anyone.
I'm very sympathetic to that.
Yeah, but be careful who you're marrying. I mean, be careful who you're getting into bed with, essentially.
Right.
Well, I've seen many startups fail not because the idea couldn't have made it, but because the board members or the investors couldn't get along enough to get it done. And I know that that's like oversimplifying some bigger problems than that, but there have been times where, people have lost control of their company and their idea because not the right people are at the table.
Yeah, make choices carefully.
Yeah.
So in addition to you continue to do board work, which you love, you continue to do investment work, but you've just launched something brand new as well.
Yes, so KirtleyWood, this is a very niche business, but it builds on what you've heard so far in this podcast. I think it builds on the fact that I have been in a boardroom continuously since 2003. I've been in many of them, and I've been on some really big ones. Coca-Cola Enterprises, Pioneer Natural Resources just sold to ExxonMobil for $60-some billion. So there are things you can learn from that. I've been on board with Nelson Peltz as an activist, and so you have lots of varied experiences. And one of the things I really observed closely is that when you're brand new to a board, especially if you're first time, you've never been in a boardroom before, just like you're a baby lawyer going into a courtroom the first time, you're a surgeon going into the operating room for the first time. I mean, it's intimidating or just unknown. And so therefore, what I'm intending to do with Olivia Kirtley, my business partner, is to create a service where we're the people you can call. So you don't have to show your ignorance to your fellow director, but you can ask us the questions of, why did that happen again? Or what is the purpose of this? And so essentially think of it as a board, it's a board benefit for the first time or first time committee members. So we will be on retainer with the new director, we'll be on retainer with the new leader of it, and we're apart from the board, but we can provide counsel. We don't do financial analysis, but interaction and thinking through what you need to do to be effective in those roles. And another thing we'll do is if you want to go IPO, we can help you do all the governance. And each year you probably need to do a board evaluation, and we're a good source of being able to, as a third party, come in and ask people about things and then make comments that will help them improve their board performance.
So you're hired by the board.
Hired by the company.
Hired by the company to help the board in
Correct.
these ways.
That's exactly right.
That
Thank
is
you for
fascinating.
clarifying that. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very.
It's very
a
niche.
niche.
It's
a
niche.
niche, but it's a.
Yeah. But
First of all, it's a
neat.
lot of money in that niche, and it's an important. I mean, what a great service these boards could use.
We were talking about even our, you were very formally trained in your corporate life, and corporations as a whole still are very formal in comparison to, say, like a startup. But our world has casualized, is that even a word? And the lack of, there might not be the resources or the training that helps someone be ready. And so you are there to help guide, it's a service of the company, but it is so reassuring that you could be there to help guide these people and some of that formality and some of the training to be prepared to serve. And I'm not assuming that these people are necessarily young in age, but they are going to continually be younger as more and more people get ready. And they're probably lacking some of the training you had so that you can pass down that advice.
I would say it this way. There's certain people who are going to join boards who don't need us at all. They're CEOs or they're CFOs from other high-performing companies. They do not need us. However, let's say you're a general coming from the military, or you're a CISO with AI experience, you're not going to know this corporate world. And so it's helping people in a corporate world. Many good companies have board buddies where you are invited or asked or given someone to help you for the first year. Those companies have it. They have it. We're the ones who, when you don't have those things in a company, we can really help you.
Mm-hmm.
So what's interesting is the niche you have is actually solving hard problems with good people.
Correct.
Because you're being hired by companies who are doing a good thing. They're trying to help their board be more successful, and in particular sympathetic and compassionate to the people who are coming in who might need that support. So you actually have built a company that does that exact thing, is bring those two things together.
And I'm very deliberate about that. Something that is not known, probably either one of you, I've just been appointed to the North America Advisory Council for Chatham House, which is the British think tank, the Royal Institute of International Affairs, sort of like our Council on Foreign Relations.
Cool. She's the coolest person I know.
And when they were talking to me about it last fall, it sounds like, well, I lived in London. I had a child born there who's dual citizen. You know, I mean, I know a lot about it and I follow it. Now, after everything that's happening, to help the United Kingdom understand what's happening in America, it feels like a responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
Someone's got to do it.
It's just the kind of thing that works for me, because that's a hard problem, and it's got really good people. The quality of the people there is so high in the think tanks, and so it fits kind of, as you have gotten to know me a little bit, it sort of fits in with that.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I can help in this time in understanding each other, it will be very good.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
kindness, it's good people,
It's
it's hard
counseling.
problems, it's counseling. Ugh, this is
It's how
just
this
the
all
best.
fits together. When
Yeah.
you see, you're talking about having intellectual parents and thinking that you were going to be a counselor, and you have used that skill set and that naturalness to you to apply it in a world that really needs more kindness. When you think of finance and you think of the world problems and you think of big corporate boards, you don't necessarily automatically go kindness and counseling, but we need people like you bringing both the business acumen and conscience to those rooms.
On behalf of the entire city of Louisville, I just want to say thank you for being here in Louisville with us.
Oh, you make it easy for me to be here, so thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We're lucky that this is where you ended up making your forever home so that you could have long-standing, deep connections with people.
Yeah. This is as long as I've lived anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If someone who is listening is looking for getting in touch with your new business, they're a corporate. They have access to a corporate board who might need your services. Where would they find your new company?
So the best thing to do, frankly, is find us on LinkedIn, or we have a website, KirtleyWood.com.
All right, we'll make sure we link it.
KirtleyWood. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for your time and your wisdom. I think this is probably one of the most wisdom-filled shows we've had this season, and I cannot wait for people to get to hear it.
Well, great. Well, thanks for having me. Sure appreciate it.
Thank you.